Good morning. I'm Miss Carla. I'm at the Fox Point Library, and once again I'm recording this and uploading it instead of going live because of some issues with our YouTube channel, but we're working on taking care of that, so hopefully we'll be live again soon. But in the meantime, I'm recording and uploading, and this is our last reading for Ghost Squad by Claribel A. Ortega. We're almost done. Just finishing up the story. My plan for next week, for Monday, is to start up on Mañana Land by Pam Munoz Ryan, which has been very well received. And of course, Pam Munoz Ryan is a very popular author and has been for some time. If you've read it's right here on my shelf. Oh, Esperanza Rising. That's the one everybody knows by her, Esperanza Rising. But this is unrelated to that, and I'm very interested to see what it's like. So this is probably what we're going to read next, starting on Monday. All right. Okay, chapter 22. This is page 221. Lucily awoke with a start, gasping for air as if she had nearly drowned. The room around her slowly came into focus. She was back at the lighthouse, lying on the floor with Babette, Sid, and her dad standing over her. Babette produced one of the small strawberry candies she always seemed to have in her pockets and offered it to Lucily. Here, this'll help. Lucy, you're not dead, Sid squealed, nearly tackle-hugging her. Goonies never say die, Lucily groaned from the hug, her body still stiff from lying on the concrete floor for who knows how long. But she didn't pull away either. Simon reached over and squeezed her shoulder. I'm glad you're okay, kiddo, but I knew you would be. You're always so strong, stronger than I could ever be. That's not true. Where do you think I get it from? Lucily smiled at Simon. Are we going to hug one another all night or get down to business? Babette asked, despite the clear look of relief on her face. What did you see? Lucily began. Well, one moment I was standing here, and the next I was alone in a cemetery, the Huguenot, when I was attacked by thousands of spirits. Some part of me knew it was a vision, but it felt so real. And did you get what you needed? She nodded, and Babette gave her the scroll of paper and a pen. Write it down quickly before you forget. You and Sid will need to recite it no matter what happens. I've already prepared the space. Lucily wasn't sure how, but Babette must have known the spell would come to her during the vision. Dozens of lit candles flickered around the red viewing platform, their light weaving with the fireflies' light as they flew in and out of the room. Babette pointed at the spirit storm building on the sea in the light of the moon. I need your toughest firefly, Lucily, the scariest of them all. Lucily nearly smiled, and then in unison with Sid and her father said, Tia Milagros. Lucily tapped on her mason jar and called for her tia, and moments later she emerged. What do we do? Tia Milagros's voice arrived before her human form did, but soon she was standing next to Babette, chancla in hand. We use these. Babette flourished her cape to reveal tiny mirrors along its edges, and the lenses here. She pointed at the giant rotating lenses within the lighthouse enclosure. Now we just need the help of las brujas moradas, Tia Milagros said. I know those stories well. As a member of the coven, I can invoke their spirits here tonight. More than their spirits, their energy, their power. Babette turned to Tia Milagros and smiled. Can you get me up to the lens, Lucily and Sid, when you see a light flare from us? Just as the light from this beacon comes around for the third time, you begin the spell. Simon, you and Chunk cover the girls. Got it? They all nodded. "Let's go," Babette said. Tia Milagros nodded and then became a bright white light, enveloping Babette and taking her out into the storm. The beam from the lighthouse came around, illuminating the spirit storm. It was a shapeless form, and as it came closer, Lucily saw that it was made of a disgusting gray, slimy substance. It groaned with what sounded like the voices of hundreds of lost souls. With her father, Sid, and Chunk by her side, Lucily watched as Babette opened her cape and revealed a magic wand. Lucily was anxious but on high alert, waiting for the signal for her to recite the spell with Sid. The spirit storm seemed to notice Babette standing at attention on the topmost platform of the lighthouse now, and grew in all different directions, like a 10,000-headed monster. It roared at Babette and gained speed as it charged toward them. Babette shot a bolt of purple light from her wand, briefly stunning the spirit storm. Babette raised her arms and began to intone a spell, her voice booming in the night sky so loudly that Lucily wouldn't have been surprised if all of Florida could hear her. Her cape was spread out on both sides and seemed to go on for miles. The tiny mirrors glittered in the moonlight. Las brujas moradas, hear us tonight, no longer in hiding, no longer in fright. Las brujas moradas, come to our call, no longer afraid to tumble and fall. Las brujas, answer our plea, come to us now from land and from sea. Take this demon away tonight, Las brujas moradas, take this demon from sight. Twinkling purple stars began to shower down all around them. Brilliant and bright, they fell like snow before settling into their human forms on the viewing platform. The brujas surrounded Babette as she moved to stand next to the massive lens. Light pulsed from their hands as they transmitted their energy to Babette. When the light from the beacon came around again, Babette bellowed, "Now!" "It's now or never, Sid," Lucily said. Sid nodded, tears forming in her eyes. They were both shaking, perhaps from the wind or fear, or probably both. But Lucily fixed Sid with a determined look and squeezed her hands. "We can do this," she tried to tell her. "We're gonna do this." Lucily took a deep breath and began. A sprinkle of sun, a shimmer of light, turn back the darkness, turn back the fright. A swarm of spirits closed in on them, but Simon fought them back with a razzle-dazzler in each hand, shooting as if he'd been doing this his whole life. Chunk hissed and swatted at any ghost that got too close, occasionally growing to her mega-chunk size and roaring in their faces. Lucily took a jagged, deep breath, her hands shaking so hard she could barely keep hold of Sid. "We've got this," Sid yelled over the howling wind, "and I believe in you, Lucily." "Meow," added Chunk. Lucily felt the warmth of the fireflies around her, as if they were saying, "We believe in you too." She closed her eyes and finished the spell from the heart. "I call on the power of my ancestors' ghosts and speak 3 names I love most. Simon Luna, Teresa Luna, and Sid Fairs." Light shot out from Sid's and Lucily's clasped hands, straight toward Babette and Las Brujas. Magnified by the lighthouse's lens, an explosion of purple and white lit up the night sky. The bright lights reflected off Babette's cape and surged, bigger and bigger, until finally the dazzling blaze of purple and white light seemed to engulf the entire ocean. Everything was shaking, and the lighthouse seemed moments from collapsing around them. A massive swirling gateway formed in the sky above the lighthouse, dragging the spirit storm across its threshold as if Tia Milagros were vacuuming them all up. The ghosts wailed as they flew into the void, and a final rush of fog overtook them, making a sound like a roller coaster tumbling overhead. The sky above the lighthouse roared shut, leaving nothing but silence and the light of the fireflies blinking out. Chapter 23, 2 days later. The last chapter. When Lucily opened her eyes, she saw her father sitting in the chair next to her bed, a huge, goofy smile on his face. Welcome back to the land of the living, kiddo. Simon held out a bowl of cold farina. You put it in the fridge, she croaked. That's my favorite. Yes, I could never forget. Her dad smiled proudly. You are my child, after all. Cold farina was Lucille's favorite thing to eat for breakfast back when her mother was around, but her dad had stopped making anything Lucille's mom used to make because it hurt him too much. Now there was no hurt in his face. There was only love. Lucille's eyes flew open as she suddenly remembered everything. Did it work? Is everyone okay? The fireflies, Mama? Lucille's heart nearly stopped waiting for her father to answer. I think they're okay. You can see them the way you can. You know I can't see them the way you can, but they're all in place, all flying and shining. She would have to check on them, but they had to be okay. They just had to be. And it did work, Lucy. You girls saved the town from a vengeful mega-ghost with an army of nasty spirits. Not to mention, you and Sid are local heroes now. Simon held up a newspaper for her to see. The Gazette delivered a special issue to every house in St. Augustine yesterday morning. You two made the front page. Local best friends save St. Augustine. At just 12 years old, best friends Lucille Luna, daughter of Simon Luna, owner and operator of the remarkably charming Luna Ghost Tour, and Sid Fairs, granddaughter of Babette's Baubles proprietor Babette Fairs, have already made their mark on St. Augustine. When a record-breaking storm made landfall on Sunday night, Lucille and Sid found themselves at a crossroads. Well, we were biking over to City Hall for the Halloween festival when we noticed that the lighthouse's beacon wasn't lit, which was odd, Sid Fairs explained. So we decided to check it out for ourselves. According to her first-hand account, by the time the girls reached the lighthouse, the sky had opened up and rain was coming down in torrents. Seeking shelter inside, they discovered that the lighthouse's power grid had been completely shut off. Now, I'm no expert when it comes to electrical work, but when I see a massive switch that says off and on, I can handle it myself, Fairs said. Once the lighthouse's power grid was back online, the emergency alert sensors came alive. Now alight, the beacon could fulfill its purpose, guiding travelers both on land and at sea out of harm's way. The quick and decisive action of these two girls may just have saved lives. As the sun rose on a new day, the brute strength of the storm was on full display. Rebuilding will take years, but if we've learned anything from our past, it's that those who gather around a unifying cause and help one another create a stronger and more resilient community, prepared to weather any storm that dares to try to divide them. I don't understand, Lucille said. None of this is true. Everyone at City Hall saw what happened that night. Are you sure about that, Lucy? Simon raised an eyebrow. What's the name of the newspaper again? She inspected the front page. At the top, in bold Gothic type, were the words, The Babette Gazette. Lucille looked confused. Babette wrote this? Pretty good, right? Babette glided into the room, trailed by Sid. I'm glad you've finally woken up. You two left quite a mess in my library. I think I'm feeling kind of sleepy now, actually, said Sid. And Lucille laughed. Chunk tried to jump onto Lucille's bed and failed, so Sid hefted her up, setting her in Lucille's lap. I'm glad you're okay, Sid, Lucille said. Me? You're the one who's been knocked out. My parents even came by to play some music to help you heal, or something hippie-ish. You slept through my dad's saxophone and my mom's drums. Think about that. The girls laughed, and Lucille quirked an eyebrow. What about the attack at City Hall? The mayor turning into an evil spirit and wreaking havoc all over town? Everyone at the Halloween festival saw what really happened. People are too willing to believe an easy lie in place of a complicated truth. Babette flourished her hand as she spoke. Anyone with, say, a talent for the craft of deception can bend the truth just enough to turn one's memory of events into something more palatable for the general public. Sid rolled her eyes. What Babette is trying to say is that once everyone in town had recovered from her magic shockwave thingy that banished the evil spirits at City Hall, and wipe their memory, she enchanted these newspapers so that anyone who read them would remember my grandma's creative writing version of history. Lucily scrunched her face. Kind of like that red flashy thing they use in Men in Black? Women in Purple doesn't quite have the same ring to it, though, Simon said, laughing. Whoa, that's so cool. It was all starting to click into place for Lucily. Simon's face softened. You've missed a lot in the past 2 days, Lucy. They found the real Mayor Anderson locked in the basement of City Hall, rambling on about how Eliza Braggs had ghost-napped him, Sid cut in, though he didn't know she was a ghost at the time. I had to whip up a little something special just for him, Babette winked at Lucily. Speaking of which, why didn't Sid sleep for 2 days? Lucily sat up and the room spun. The magic took a lot out of you, Babette explained. And as it turns out, I'm a witch! Sid pounced onto the bed, and even though it made the room spin again, Lucily laughed. Witch in training, Babette corrected. You've got a lot to learn before you can call yourself a true witch. Lucily squealed with excitement at Sid's news, wrapping her in a hug. I can't believe it. My best friend is a witch. I know. I can't wait to hex our classmates, Sid said. Sydney. Babette's voice was low. I'm kidding, Sid said. I'm not kidding, she whispered into Lucily's ear. Lucily laughed and sank into Sid's arms. Thanks for believing in me, Sid, and for sticking by my side throughout all this. I couldn't have done it without you. Sid smiled. That's what I'm here for. Cracking jokes and kicking ghost butt and being charming. I could go on. Lucily and Sid broke into a fit of giggles. The phone in the hallway rang, waking a grumpy Chunk from her nap. I'll get it, Simon said, stepping out of the room. Luna Ghost Tour. No, sorry, we're all booked through Halloween. Yes, of next year. I'm so sorry. I will keep your name on the waiting list in case of a cancellation. Yes, of course, thank you. Lucily felt like her eyes might pop out of her head. Halloween of next year? That's right, Simon said. With all the media attention around you and Sid, thanks to Babette's article, we've been flooded with calls and bookings for the past 2 days. Does that mean we don't have to move? Lucily asked hopefully. The Lunas are officially here to stay, and we're going to help St. Augustine get back on its feet. After the destruction caused by Eliza Braggs and her spirit storm, the town needs us here more than ever. Lucily beamed at her dad, happy that some more good had come of all this. Have you made her the tea? Babette asked Simon as she put one hand on Lucily's forehead. Oh, not yet. I'll go do that right now. I'll be right back, kid, Simon said as he and Babette walked out, Babette giving him instructions the entire way. Lucily, can I ask you something sort of weird? Sid asked. When have you ever asked permission for that? Lucily joked before seeing that Sid was being serious. Way harsh, but fair. I was just wondering, Sid tugged at her sleeves. When you were reciting the last part of the spell, why did you say my name and not your mother's? Lucily chewed her lip. When I blacked out, ghosts helped me escape in my vision, and I saw the spirits of all the historical figures my dad was hanging up around our house. They reminded me of home, and when I thought of home, I thought of you. I could just feel the final piece of the spell had to come from my heart. I spent a lot of time thinking about how much I missed my mom, how much I wished I had my family back together again. But then I realized that I already have a family. She smiled at Sid. My dad and you and Babette and the Fireflies. Even all the Goonies cats. Can you even imagine what that family portrait would look like? They both laughed at this. Chunk rolled onto her back next to Lucily. Meow, she agreed. Maybe family is more than who you're related to, Lucily said. It's also the people you find and love along the way. I had no idea you were so deep, Lucily, Sid teased. Lucily rubbed Chunk's belly and shrugged playfully. The deepest. I'm like a poet or something. I'm really glad you're not moving away, Sid said, squeezing her again. Lucily sank back into her bed, smiling. Me too, Sid. Just then, a warm breeze swept through Lucily's open window, and the room began to fill with a light so bright that Lucily and Sid had to pull the blanket up to shield their eyes. After a few moments, Lucily dared to peek, squinting her eyes as they adjusted to the dimming glow that now surrounded her. Macarena and Manny, Tia Milagros and Tia Rosario, Tio Celestino, Benny and Yesenia, everyone in her spirit family was there, standing around her bed, smiling. "You're all okay," she beamed. "I was worried that I'd lost you forever." Tia Milagros reached out and took Lucily's hand. "Our place is here, with you." Macarena jumped onto the bed and hugged Lucily so tightly she could barely breathe. Her spirit family parted to let through another shimmering light. As it came closer and closer, the light began to take shape. The woman before her smiled, a million wrinkles lining her face and the brown liver spots on her hands peeking out from her flowery sleeves. As she came closer, Lucily smiled, her face wet with tears. "Mama," she choked out. Mama Teresa sat on the bed, and Lucily threw herself into her abuela's arms. "No pasa nada, mi niña," Mama said as she smoothed Lucily's frizzed hair and began singing softly to her. "Everything is okay," Lucily said, smiling back at Mama, and she knew she was home. That's the end of the book, Ghost Squad by Claribel A. Ortega. I don't think I showed you this before we started. This is the picture of the author. Well, I hope you enjoyed that book. There was some crazy stuff that happened, and some of the writing was really beautiful. I liked a lot of the descriptions. But if you didn't like it, that's okay too. So I hope to see you next week when we will be starting Mañana Land by Pam Munoz Ryan. Bye-bye.